Revenge films.
My name is Kenjiro, a 30-year-old office worker. My wife Izumi is 33, quit her job at marriage, and became a housewife. At the beginning of our marriage, everything was going well. My wife did the housework and managed the household finances. She would withdraw from savings or use credit cards only for what was needed for living. However, in the second year of marriage, things gradually started going wrong. When I came home from work, I checked the balance on online banking and was shocked when I confirmed the credit card payments. Why have the savings decreased so much? And last month's credit card payment, isn't that way too much? I warned my wife. I don't know how many times I've warned her about this sort of thing.
Are you treating your wife like she's a slave or something? I work 24/7, 365 days, so it's not strange for me to receive appropriate payment for that, isn't it? But since your cheap salary couldn't pay for it, I'm holding back to this extent.
My wife has recently been absorbed in the internet, especially reading articles like "Protect Women's Rights," apparently. I'm not saying you can't rest, am I? It's fine to spend money occasionally on eating out or whatever you like. But recently, you haven't been doing much housework, have you? Couldn't you do a bit more housework? I pointed out gently. However, my wife flew into a rage.
Wives are human too. No human has the right to order another human. I will fight with all my strength to protect women's rights and freedom. You only see women as labor in a sexual outlet. Your words and actions are a vicious hate crime that makes enemies of all women.
Hate crime? My wife, influenced by the internet, started using terms she never used before. When I looked it up later, hate crime apparently means crimes caused by prejudice or discrimination. In other words, my wife wanted to say I was discriminating just because she's a woman. More and more incomprehensible words and claims mixed in, and my wife's abuse became increasingly intense. After about an hour, I, exhausted from work, ended up apologizing. At first, seeing my wife angry as if she was on fire, maybe without realizing it myself, am I actually a terrible person? I even worried about such things, so I worked hard on housework to reduce my wife's burden. I immediately fixed the things my wife criticized, but I later realized all of that was pointless. The reason my wife was harsh on me was because she was having an affair with a young man. The day my wife abandoned housework and left home, knowing she was going on a hot spring trip with her affair partner, I stopped her credit card and transferred the savings to another account.
Housewives aren't slaves. Taking breaks is the natural right of housewives.
My wife, who had been making such plausible claims, would have a terrible time being unable to use money. I noticed my wife's affair purely by chance. My wife, in high spirits, went to shower while humming, leaving her smartphone. The screen was still on, so I casually looked at it. What was displayed was an exchange with her affair partner. Apparently, she'd made arrangements for a 2-day, 1-night hot spring trip. The affair partner was a young, handsome guy. My wife was confidently sending messages to her affair partner.
Leave the financial matters to me. I have a credit card and plenty of savings. My ATM earns money, so don't worry about payment. As a part-time worker, you don't get to eat delicious food usually, right? Eat as much gourmet food as you want. At night, eat me on the bed.
While talking about women's rights and whatnot, she's treating her husband as an ATM. Moreover, you're the one seeing men as a sexual outlet. I put the iPhone back before my wife noticed. I vowed revenge. I hired a detective agency to collect evidence of the affair. The affair partner's age was 21, a part-time worker. Since he has no money, it seems my wife was paying for dates. I collected quite a bit of affair evidence, but decided to let them swim a bit longer. When they go on the affair trip, I'll make both the credit card and savings unusable. I decided to complete the card suspension and bank money transfer right before the affair trip. I timed it for effective revenge. I'll also have the detective follow the affair trip and collect evidence. On the day of the affair trip, my wife picked a fight with me first thing in the morning.
Don't look at my chest with those lewd eyes.
Huh? After learning of the affair, I tried not to look at my wife because anger would well up and show on my face. I'm not looking.
Yes, you are. I felt your lewd gaze. Disgusting. That sleazy gaze that only sees women as an outlet.
It may have entered my vision for a moment, but I'm not looking at you like that.
Liar, you looked at me with lewd eyes glittering with lust. You're a pitiful man who can only see women as tools for sexual processing. That's it. I can't stay in this house. I'm leaving home for a while.
My wife grabbed a large travel bag and rushed out of the house. Left alone, I sighed in exasperation. Even prepared a travel bag, all set. Either she's completely underestimating me, or she's so infatuated with the young, handsome affair partner, she doesn't seem to notice her own unnatural behavior. Just now, I wanted to demand, is neglecting housework and having affairs also women's rights, women's freedom? I struggled to endure. After a while, a long lecture message arrived, apparently written during the wait for the bullet train.
It's true that I wanted to become a housewife. However, being worked like a slave 24/7, 365 days a year would kill me. Why can't you understand the obvious fact that housewives also need breaks? This is an infringement of women's freedom. It's disregard for human rights towards women. You look down on women. Deeply reflect and apologize.
I don't look down on women. Well, I thoroughly despise you, though. I decided to ignore this ridiculous long message. A few hours later, my wife started calling incessantly. Apparently, she'd finally noticed the credit card wasn't working and there were no savings. I could understand the situation from the voicemail contents. My wife and affair partner apparently arrived at the hot spring town with my wife's cash on hand. But they apparently hadn't made reservations in advance. If the Target hotel was no good, there are plenty of hotels in a hot spring town. They seemed to think they could easily stay if money was no object. Fortunately, the Target hotel was available, so she apparently pulled out her card with a smug face. Then it didn't work, and she was greatly embarrassed. Then, naturally, she tried to withdraw at a bank, but the balance was $0. It was all abuse, but I burst out laughing. I could feel my wife's panic and confusion.
What do you think women's rights are? Not giving your wife a single penny is nothing but a human rights violation. Give me money. That's your job. You're listening to this voicemail, aren't you? Stop fooling around and give me money. Money, now. Call me back. That's an order.
While claiming her own freedom, she was ordering others around. I laughed. That night, my wife came home and yelled at me.
What have you done? I was completely humiliated.
Why can you get so angry when you went on an affair trip to stay overnight at a hot spring? My wife turned pale and was speechless. I just stopped the credit card and transferred the savings because I noticed that you're having an affair. Let's talk about the rest with a lawyer involved.
Wait a minute.
Don't tell me. You're not going to say affairs are also women's rights or freedom. My wife apparently couldn't say anything back. I divorced. I claimed $30,000 in alimony each from my wife and her affair partner. The penniless affair partner and my wife apparently had a huge fight and broke up. A long reconciliation request email came from my wife, but my reply was simple. You've finally been liberated from the household and gained women's freedom and rights, so enjoy it to your heart's content. Don't contact me again. Bye.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.